something is happening in your life right now that you are not taking seriously, and that is the problem. Before you assume this is just another random message, understand this clearly. This message is not for everyone, but if you keep watching till the end, you'll understand why you were meant to hear it today. You have been ignoring small signals because nothing big has collapsed yet. But most people only realize the warning when damage is already done. This is not here to comfort you. It is here to interrupt your pattern, because there is a cycle quietly repeating in your life that you already sensed but never acted on. Same situations, same emotional outcomes, same confusion after every decision. You keep explaining it differently every time, but the result never changes. Now slow down for a second, don't rush ahead. Have you noticed how certain things in your life almost work out but never fully land? A conversation that never reaches closure. An opportunity that comes close, then slips away. A situation that restarts but never completes. This is not a coincidence. This is repetition without correction. When life starts repeating itself, it is not trying to punish you. It is trying to get your attention in a language you can no longer ignore. This is often seen as life correcting direction through resistance, where your path and your actions stop supporting each other. At that stage, effort is no longer enough. Something deeper needs to shift. And here is where it becomes personal, because the same pattern you are facing outside is already active inside your thinking. Same reaction, same expectation, same emotional loop until that changes. Nothing external stabilizes for long. Now ask yourself quietly, no pressure, just honesty. Is there one area in your life where you already know what needs to change, but you are still delaying it, hoping somehow the outcome will be different this time? That is the point where most people stay stuck. Not because they are weak, but because familiar pain feels safer than unknown change. This is exactly where a deeper awareness begins, not loud, not dramatic, but impossible to unsee once it lands inside you. Something in your current path is asking for correction, not more effort. If even a part of you is feeling this right now, then this is not just content anymore. It has already started reflecting something back at you. You are not stuck because nothing is changing. You feel stuck because something inside you is still continuing the same direction while expecting a different result. That contradiction quietly drains your peace. Let that sink in for a moment, because most people think their problem is outside people, timing, luck, circumstances, but the uncomfortable truth is, a big part of the cycle is being sustained by small decisions you keep repeating without even noticing. The same choice to delay, the same choice to ignore discomfort, the same choice to return to what already proved unstable. And each time you tell yourself, this time it will be different, but nothing changes unless the pattern changes. Have you ever noticed how life keeps sending the same kind of situation again and again, just in slightly different forms? A similar type of person, a similar emotional outcome, a similar ending, just with a new beginning. It is almost like the scene changes, but the script stays the same. And at some point, this is no longer about destiny. It becomes about awareness. Because what you don't correct, life keeps presenting back to you in different ways, until you finally pause long enough to see the lesson instead of just the pain. This is often understood as sanskar repeating itself, deep impressions shaping reaction, until consciousness interrupts it. But here is the part most people miss. The situation is not the real problem anymore. Your response to it is. And if your response remains unchanged, even a better opportunity will eventually turn into the same experience. That is why sometimes life doesn't send new things. It keeps reshaping the same lesson in sharper forms, not to punish you, but to make you aware. Now think carefully. Is there something in your life right now that you already understand logically but still emotionally return to? Something you know is draining you, but still feels familiar enough to hold on to. That is not confusion, that is attachment disguised as comfort. And comfort can quietly become the biggest reason for repeated struggle. At this point, the message is no longer about what is happening to you. It is about what is happening through you. That is where a shift either begins or gets delayed again. Because awareness alone is not enough. Action is where the pattern breaks. If you are still listening to this without skipping away, then somewhere inside you already know this is not new information. It is a reminder you have been avoiding for a while. And now the real question is not what life is doing to you. It is what you are still allowing to continue. There is a strange phase in life where nothing looks wrong on the surface, but nothing feels right either. You continue doing what you always did, you show up the same way, you try to convince yourself that things will eventually settle. But deep inside, something keeps shifting. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to make familiar things feel slightly disconnected. That is where most people misunderstand what is happening, because when life starts removing certain people, certain opportunities, certain situations, the first reaction is resistance. You try to pull things back into place. You try to fix what is already fading. But have you noticed something? The more force you apply, the more distance you create. It is almost like reality is no longer responding to effort in the same way. Now pause here and be honest with yourself. Is there something you are still emotionally attached to, even though it no longer feels aligned? Not something you fully hold, not something you fully released, but something stuck in between. That in-between space is the real reason your mind feels heavy, because you are no longer fully inside the old version of your life, but you are also not fully out of it. That creates internal friction. This phase is often described as sankraman, a transition where old impressions start dissolving, but the new direction has not fully stabilized yet. During this phase, confusion is not a sign of going backwards. It is a sign of restructuring, but the mind rarely interprets it that way. It labels it as delay, it labels it as failure, it labels it as loss, when in reality, something is being filtered out of your life that cannot exist in your next phase. The hardest part is not the change itself. It is letting go of what you already got used to, because even pain becomes familiar when it stays long enough. And familiarity feels like safety, even when it is the reason you stay stuck. So the real question is not what is leaving your life. The question is, what are you still emotionally dragging forward that already ended internally? Because until that answer becomes clear, the cycle doesn't break. It just reshapes itself again. At some point, life stops giving soft signals, not because it stopped guiding you, but because subtle signs were no longer enough. That is when experiences start becoming heavier, not to punish you, but to break the loop of repetition. Now understand this clearly. What you are facing right now is not random instability. It is pattern resistance meeting reality pressure. There is a difference between things happening to you. Things are happening because something in you has not changed yet. And this is where most people unknowingly get stuck. They keep adjusting external things while the internal pattern remains untouched. Different situations, same response. Different people, same emotional reaction. Different opportunities, same hesitation, and the result stays familiar. Now be honest for a moment. Is there a decision in your life that you keep postponing by overthinking it repeatedly? Not because you don't know what to do, but because doing it will require you to leave a version of comfort behind. That is the real block. Not confusion, not lack of options, but emotional dependency on something that no longer supports your growth. When this continues for too long, life naturally increases clarity pressure. You start noticing things differently. What once felt acceptable starts feeling uncomfortable. What once felt normal starts feeling misaligned. What once felt necessary starts feeling unnecessary. This is not life turning against you. This is awareness becoming stronger than habit. But if you keep delaying that inner decision, then the external world becomes more uncomfortable, not to harm you, but to force movement. Because stagnation cannot remain stable forever. Eventually, something has to shift. If you are feeling that subtle internal pressure right now, it simply means you are closer to a turning point than you think. Not at the beginning, not at the middle, but right at the edge where continuation and change meet. Whichever direction you choose from here will quietly define the next phase of your experience. Now take this moment differently. Don't just listen, apply it. Because everything you've understood till now means nothing if your mind stays overloaded the same way tomorrow. So I want you to do something very simple but powerful. Not complicated, not spiritual performance, just a mental reset. Sit comfortably wherever you are. Let your shoulders drop naturally. For a few seconds, stop trying to fix anything in your mind. You don't have to solve your life right now. You don't have to answer every thought. Just allow your attention to come back to your breath. Slow inhale, slow exhale. As you breathe, notice one thing clearly: you are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. Now gently shift your focus away from everything that feels heavy. Not by force, but by not feeding it for a moment. If a thought comes, don't fight it. Just let it pass like background noise. And return back to your breath. This is not escape. This is detachment from mental noise, because clarity never enters a crowded mind. Now imagine your mind like water. When it is constantly shaken, nothing is visible. But when it becomes still, even small things become clear. That stillness is what you are creating right now. Not forever, just for this moment. And if you practice this even for a few minutes daily, you will notice something subtle. Your reactions will slow down, your decisions will feel lighter, your inner pressure will reduce, not because life changed, but because your response did. Now take one final deep breath, slowly return your attention back. You don't need a new life instantly. You need a clearer mind inside the same life. What you felt during this message is not something you can unsee easily, because once awareness enters, ignorance doesn't feel the same anymore. Maybe that is what this was about from the beginning. Not fear, not warning, but recognition that something in your life has already been asking for change in silence for a long time. Now you can no longer ignore it the same way. You don't need to rush anything today. But you also cannot keep delaying what your mind already understands, because life doesn't change when you wish for it. It changes when your response changes. And if you've reached this far, then maybe this wasn't just a video for you. Maybe it was a pause in your pattern, a moment where something inside finally slowed down enough to be noticed. What you choose after this will quietly shape what comes next. Not instantly, but deeply. Take care of your thoughts. They decide more of your life than you realize. If this message stayed with you, it already did its work. If you made it all the way till here, then this wasn't just a video for you. Somewhere inside, you already understood what needs to change. Those who stay till the end don't leave with questions. They leave with awareness. And once you see your pattern clearly, you can't call it a coincidence anymore. Now, the real moment is not watching this again. It's what you stop repeating after this ends.